hire smarter than yourself, which means that you have to put your ego in its own place and understanding that. It's having those professionals on your side to mitigate what you don't think will ever happen to you.
It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders, insightful and inspiring conversations with founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists who help shape our city. Heralding from the Calgary Petroleum Club, connecting Calgary's business leaders since 1948. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ga'aina, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Eahe Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
Today's guest is Karen Boudewyn. Karen began her financial career in Victoria, BC, where she spent 15 years in venture capital and business development. The knowledge and experience working with startup companies has been invaluable when working with business owners. Understanding their priorities and pain points allow for an in-depth financial planning conversations to achieve corporate goals. Karen is client-focused to find the solution you and your business needs. Whether it's funding corporate agreements, tax deferral methods, or strategic ways to draw income from your corp, your challenge is her priority. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it, Kim.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, good.
You came with all your notes.
I did.
You're a linear thinker, aren't you? You think things through, don't you?
I like to think of the ideas, and then the ideas tend to get deep.
There you go.
Makes any sense.
Hence the book. I've never seen you without a notebook.
Really?
Yeah.
I do like to write. I find
I've noticed that.
It evolves my thinking. Yes.
Yeah. And they actually have study after study after study where they've done in universities where they've had kids that will do a pop quiz that have only been on tablet, and kids who have done pop quizzes who have been writing. And the ones that have written the content actually have a higher retention for the content and perform better on their tests than the kids who are strictly tapping away.
Well, fantastic.
So, yeah.
That's
so there you go.
Good.
There you go. So you're on top of your game because you've got that memory recall. But before we dive into what you do, I would love for you to share who is Karen.
Well, Karen, I came from very humble means, from a little town in BC called Souk. My father was an entrepreneur in the resource industry, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. And what was really spectacular is that I never had any limiting beliefs to anything that I could do, and that was very much instilled by my father. If I would come to him and say, "Hey, Dad, I'm thinking about doing this," he goes, "Well, great. Can I help you in any way?" And then I just went forth and conquered the world. There was never anything that he felt that I couldn't do. So, of course, I tested that.
Hence that first car ride.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, you know what? We're going to dedicate this episode to your dad. You just lost your father.
I did.
And what was your father's name?
Ross Petrie.
Ross Petrie. So everybody knows that this episode is going to be dedicated to your dad because we're going to be talking about your successes, your strengths, what you've done, and all of it does anchor back to that home origin,
It
right?
does. And I think that's, as life goes along, we find our values. We find where our strengths lie. And one day I was offered this great position. It was back in the days where I was doing venture capital. And I had been working with a fella, and it was 2000. Things weren't looking too great in the venture capital world at the time. And I had to excuse myself from his employment. I said, now it's just not the time to have me involved. So I went off and did other things. And at that time had some great skill sets in the public markets and working with what was the Vancouver Stock Exchange. And in that time that I wasn't working with Ian, it was a disappointing time. But one day he called me up and said, "Look, I can't do this without you." And I went for a run, and I thought, wow, why is that? Like, how did I become who I became? And during that run, I wrote down in my mind, and then when I came back, of course, I wrote it in my book, the values that I got from my father and the values that I got from my mother, and what I hold as these little gems inside. So with my father, it was intelligence, it was critical thinking, it was and a can-do, there is nothing you can't do attitude. For my mom, she was just such a compassionate, warm person that was always looking to please others and could connect with pretty much anybody. And I really admired that. And so I took those traits and I chose to have those as my values going forward, which has served me quite well. So I did start my career in the corporate finance world in venture capital for 15 years, and that was quite interesting. And then I evolved through commercial interior design and then ending in financial planning, which is kind of like commercial interior design. I treat my clients like a project. So what I do is I am a solution finder. I find solutions to situations that you are not yet aware are going to come up.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's right in her book. It's right in her book.
Yeah.
So, no, that's, let's walk down that. So what I want you to do is you talked about venture capital. For those who are just starting their journey, can you give us some different definitions as to where venture capital serves, where financial planning serves, like who do these serve and at what stage?
Okay. So venture capital they serve that new startup. So what would happen is this was back pre-Dragon's Den. So I liken it with the Dragon's Den. People come to the office and they pitched our team of, hey, here is a great idea. We think everyone wants it. And we say, wow, that's great. Tell us more. So we get more and more information. They generally share why they came up with the idea. Here's an example of one, Dave Green. He's with Carmana Technologies, and he had retired, and he floated his boat or drove his boat, or I guess captained his boat around the world. And while he was going around the world, he had this great idea that there was all these buoys, and on the buoys, he saw that the Coast Guard would have to come and change out the battery every 6 months so that the lights would work and you wouldn't hit rocks. So he decided to come up with this idea, and this is, 2004, sometime around there, that he used LED lights in a polypropylene encapsule, and then on the bottom he had this battery that would last for 5 years. Well, that was pretty spectacular for the Coast Guard. We only have to go back every 5 years to replace this thing. So Dave brought that to us, and we thought it was a pretty good idea. So we had this criteria where it had to be green, it had to be marketable internationally, and it had to be innovative. So that checked all the boxes. And what ended up happening with that company is we raised them capital. So we raised money through individual angel investors and sophisticated investors to give them their initial amount so that they could then take their company to a public platform, into a public market, so that they could be traded on what was then the TSX, what is now the TSX. So it allowed other people to get involved. It grew the company with that capital. And so that is, that was definitely one of the wins that we had. That's how we would serve.
So that's the wealth generation opportunity.
Correct. That's correct.
Now you're in wealth management. What exactly does that encompass?
So wealth management is, again, there's lots of pillars when it comes to it. You know, when you do any project, you look at what's your timeline, what's your goal, what do you want to achieve, and how do you want to feel? And that's really what I look at. So we look at everything from your cash flow and your cash flow analysis and really understand those numbers, because there's a lot of Calgarians that work very, very hard.
Yes.
And they know how to make money. They know how to be a visionary. They know how to be energized and to share that. And they work very hard, but knowing how to invest that money for the short term, the medium term, and the long term is so essential. And in doing that, we also want to look at risk factors along the way to make sure that if anything were to happen with that business owner, and we look at those, the 4Ds. And the 4Ds, and I'm referring to my book here: death, disability, disagreement, and divorce. Those are real. So those are things we talk to the business owners, because they don't think they're going to happen, because everything is going really, really well. And we want everything to continue going well. So we put safeguards in place. So not only are we looking at present day, we're looking at what could possibly happen, we're looking at also building in different pillars and different ways, some in tax deferred ways, some in tax efficient ways. And we look at ways for the longer term where capital can be taken back out of their company in a very tax efficient manner. So
I love the 4Ds. We had that in real estate. I did real estate for 20 years. So
Yes.
it's death, disease, financial demise, and divorce. And sometimes people would prefer one over the other because divorce wasn't pretty for a lot of them. But yeah, and it was 50% of our business. So I get that. As soon as you said that, it's like, oh, we had that same kind of thing. Yeah. So when we talk about wealth management, you talk about understanding revenue. We know that there's a lot of startups. Calgary is a young city, a vibrant city, a smart city. And we have tech startups like crazy happening here. Ag, med, bio. We have prop tech. There's some crazy stuff happening in the center. However, knowing where your next dollar is coming from is not always... You can't always forecast it.
No.
How do you work with those types of clients? Those people who don't have that paycheck or that steady income. Maybe they're on a build cycle. Because a lot of people, I'm assuming things, and you should never assume things. We know what happens with that. But do a lot of people avoid wealth management consultations and planning and aligning with somebody to help guide them because they don't know when the right time is?
Well, I think there is a bit of fear there always, because people feel that they should be somewhere better than where they are. When is the best time to plant a tree as far as the Japanese proverb is concerned? Well, 20 years ago was the best time. When's the next best time?
Today.
Today is the day. So whatever has happened, that has already happened. What we can do is we can look at the present day and safeguard going forward. So we create strategies so that you are safeguarded when the cash flow ebbs and flows, because it does ebb and flow.
Yeah.
There's also some very large companies, and high income earners are another sector of my clients, and they are making so much money. They're so scared that they're going to burn out, and then they're not going to have anything to show for it. So having that conversation, what can I do? It's two minds make one very strong brain, or two brains make one really strong mind. In any event, bouncing ideas, it actually increases your opportunity for better ideas. So for the startup, yes, it's hard, but if getting some safeguards in place, like for instance, there are ways that we can take the capital and put it in a safety area so that if you have to draw from it, you can later on.
Yeah.
But if you don't ever think about it, then it won't be there. And it just has to be a small amount. But there's also ways to raise capital. And the more people that know that you are looking to raise money, the more opportunities may come and be presented.
And that's that whole network and net worth.
It's all about network and net worth. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. That network, what is it? Your net worth is in your network.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. I like it.
So in moving forward for somebody, because like you're going to be coming across all of these, startups. Like I'm going over to Platform Calgary. I love listening to them pitch.
Me too.
Like, it's just the coolest thing. What would be your advice to startups, to young entrepreneurs? We have the next generation coming up behind us. And if we want them to succeed, we have to support, we have to share. What would be some of your advice based on your experiences?
Hire smarter than yourself, which means that you have to put your ego in its own place, and understanding that. Having financial advice, and I refer back to, you don't know. I look for solutions that you don't even know are going to be a problem. And I do have some examples from venture capitals where things have happened. They had great ideas. They had two great leaders, and those two great leaders were working forward. One of which had all of the technical experience. The other had the marketing experience. They had a great team. And what ended up happening is the technical guy came to us and said, look, I know you just funded us for $3 million, but when I was young, I had cancer. I had testicular cancer, and it has come back to my brain. And we were like, what? Like, how do you manage that? We just handed over, millions of dollars. And within 6 months, he had passed away. So what happened, the structure of the business wasn't excellent. So what happened is the family of that first technical partner, his family now came in and they took over the shares that he had. The other partner that was the marketing partner said, don't worry, we've got this. I've got all these people that are set up to sell the technology, because we had downloaded as much information as we possibly could. So he went off to California to sell the technology. And he was so stressed because he was dealing with all of the kids on the other side who were really intelligent, but they were in it for themselves, not for the business. And he actually had a heart attack and he died. So then his children came in. Now we have people that we weren't expecting to be shareholders, and they're taking over the business. And they literally took desks as well as the technology. And we had no recourse because we own 49% of the company. So business structure is essential. Is there some solutions we could have put in place to mitigate that risk? Absolutely. Did we know about it? No. Do I know it now? Absolutely. So it's having those professionals on your side to mitigate what you don't think will ever happen to you. But it sometimes does.
And I think that's the difference between a entrepreneur or a salesperson and a small business. It's the difference in, it's just me, and you move them to the language of we.
Correct. It's we. If you want to be bigger than just yourself, it's going to require more people, right? It's going to require more intellect, more professionals around you, more thoughts, more ideas, and it's going to evolve even past where you think it started, like where you thought it was going to go. And it's exciting to watch that. I love startups for that particular reason. But it's about safeguarding them along the way and giving them the support, that financial support. Or, hey, you should be talking to the lawyer now. And they say, well, we can't afford the lawyer. And my comment to that is, well, you can't afford to not have them in your court at this point. So we make things happen. So I don't do venture capital anymore, but there are many companies that do. And, vetting them appropriately, I'm getting out of scope here a little bit, but vetting them appropriately is really essential. And also looking at angel investors, because there's a lot in Calgary that have specific interests. So broadening your scope and networking.
I would believe that having this knowledge set that you have sets you above and apart from most wealth managers. What makes you unique?
Well, I am Karen Boudewyn. No, I do. I really do love people. I love their story. And I think listening to someone's story and really what drives them, not everybody has that interest. They are just interested in growing the money. And hey, don't get me wrong, that is a very
There's a
important
balance,
part.
a very fine balance.
There is a very fine balance. So money will facilitate what you want in most cases. It will. So being intentional, and I think that I ask people more questions that are personal, that are more about what is your intention in whatever area that you're looking at. What is important to you? What is that wealth? I look at wealth as far as your wealth when it comes to your physical wealth. Like, how is your health? Because if your health isn't good, then, it doesn't make any difference how much money you have. Also, where do you want to spend your time? What is your time wealth? The freedom you have in your day, what it is now, because most of the people I'm working with are working hard. So I understand that. So I meet them not in banker's hours. I meet them in the evenings. I meet them on the weekend. I will be happy to go to the gym in the morning at 6:30 and meet them there, have that discussion while we're on the bike. I love that sort of being outside of the box, because people are important and what they're doing is very important to them. And that's what I value. That's what I value in others. So understanding where their focus is now, and then also curving it, because a lot of people, they will not, well, that idea of retirement isn't really a word now. It's when do you want to alter your schedule? When do you want to open up that time freedom value that you've been thinking about doing? When is that going to change? So all it does is we're pulling different levers for those different individuals, and sometimes you don't get that advice when you meet with the banker in their hours, because you don't offer your time to them. I'm prepared to work around my clients' time.
It's interesting because you're talking a lot about that creator mindset. How do we create the future you envision? And I find that fascinating because there's more and more emphasis in today's world on creators, because that's where the future is. We've done the industrial age. We've done that retirement, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's no longer retirement. It's re-inspire, rethink, re-engage, reignite. And we're hearing all these terms. So the reality is that a lot of people are going to hit 50. They've raised their kids, may or may not have any real money in the bank, right? So they're not thinking, wealth management. But the reality is they very likely are thinking a second career. And I would think that you'd want to maybe start that from the beginning with somebody who's in wealth management to help guide you to make sure it's set up. Is that like a kind of a good...
It's true, but a compounding interest, you cannot I can't create money from just out of the air.
Really?
It's
Karen,
as much as I'd like to.
I was banking on that.
The economic situation is the economic situation, right? But I think if you have that mindset of I want for my future self, what does my future self? What are they going to need? Because they're really important. And, individuals like in the healthcare industry, they want to put back into their business to grow their business. I think, well, that's just one example of people that I've worked with. But if you just take a portion of that for your future self, and protecting your income going forward, if something were to happen to you, we talk about what are those solutions. And if you don't start, it will never happen.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So managing wealth, a lot of people think they need a certain amount of money to be able to start having that conversation. You need to have the conversation to understand how to start.
Yeah. Understand the conversation, know how to start. What's a good book out there? What are your books that you are really enjoy or go to?
Well, I do enjoy, I'm a badass at making money, which is really great for entrepreneurs.
That's an awesome book
It is.
title.
It is an awesome book. And what it does is it breakdowns. We all have some emotional about money. Oh, my mom used to tell me that I should save 10% of my income. Okay, 10% might not be enough.
Yeah.
Just saying, once you know your numbers, you have extra. You want that working for you.
Yeah.
But it's also breaking down your relationship with money. And that's a big part, right? Once you start talking about it, it improves. But if you never talk about it, it's like hidden in the sheets. So I pull open the sheets and we take a look and then we start.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, including myself, grew up with the language, we don't have money for that.
Right.
And so there is a poverty language that is applied and it's subconscious. Wealth management, where does that earnings come from? Where do you guys put that money? It's not just in a typical bank account because they don't have money.
No.
No.
I'll
take my $3 back. Each year I get $3 from the bank. Awesome.
Yeah, no. No, we don't do that. Although GICs have a nice yield right now. They're right around 5%, but you have to lock in your money. So I never think that locking in money is a good thing because lots happens in the world. I mean, what has happened in the world in the last little while? We've got a war going on in Ukraine. We've got a war going on in Gaza. We don't want to spend.
The last 5 years have been like back in like 1890 when we got electricity, or was it 1870 something when households becoming like we've been in the most transitional time of this world in the last 5 years.
It has been, yes.
And so, that's what I'm going. I agree with you. Don't lock it in. Make it work for you.
Absolutely. So we work with a company called Harness Investments, and they are our designated portfolio management. And what we do is we look at our risk assessment of each individual. And more so than that, we look at each particular different account that we would be setting up for you. So for instance, you've got a tax-free savings account, and in that tax-free savings account, the money can come and go. There's not as many restrictions, and as it grows, you can pull it out, and then you can replace it again. There's some rules. We would talk more about that. But in that, we would probably look at less of a risk, so less equity, so that it doesn't, if you want to pull the money out in a short period of time, it's not going to affect that value. But when we look at longer term investment placements like RRSPs or like locked in and investment accounts, we would look at equities there. Yes, it's okay. We're going to have that money in there for a longer period of time. It's okay if the markets go up and maybe dip down again. But then in the long term, we know that equities will win. We know that. We have the big picture. We have the index chart, and we can see over the years the index, they have it shows the value of, say, U.S. equities. It has grown year over year until now. And a lot of people look at diversifying into real estate, which I don't disagree with, but it's not a liquid asset. So if you are looking for liquid assets, then keeping them into maybe a corporate investment account, which is a great strategy for small business, for startups. So they have that rainy day fund. That is essential. And there are lots of different strategies depending on what your goals are. What is that short-term, medium-term, and long-term goal? And how do you want to feel during that period of time? Now, even if you have 50 years to save your money, but you're a nervous Nelly when it comes to markets, we address that, and that's part of your risk tolerance.
Okay, now I want to put a PSA out here. We're not telling you how to invest your money on this show. We are just showing insight as to opportunities, but you have to reach out to Karen. If you are not working with somebody, you got to reach out to Karen, because I will tell you, I've been begging her to come on the show for a few months now. Actually, I think it's longer than a few months. And the energy is very, very real. The integrity is absolutely there. And, Karen's dad, Ross, it's like sitting there and she's wanting to treat you the same as she with that respect and that integrity that she would treat her own father with. So I really do appreciate that. I know that being a startup, being creative can be scary, especially if you're a young person with a young family. But having people on your side to say, you know what, if we tighten up just a wee bit over here and we reapply over there, this can be the return just a bit down the road and create, because sometimes tightening up to create security can relieve that and relieve that mental health stress. And then that gives more energy back to you, your business, and your family. Karen, what do you like to do? I'm going to totally flip the switch here. What do you like to do for fun?
For fun?
Yeah.
Well, I like to bike. My husband and I bike ride quite a lot. We have mountain bikes, gravel bikes, and most recently an e-bike. We hike in the mountains. We love going to Kananaskis country or Canmore or up into Banff and Lake Louise. What else do we like? We have 2 children. One is 25. She lives here in Calgary. And our son is in Winnipeg, finishing up his degree. He's in 3rd year. He wants to be a conservation officer. And so, it's all about the love of the family. And that is how, when I work with the clients, it does extend to those people. Like I would like to share as much information as I possibly can so that they're well and not, trumping this. I have to give kudos to our daughter. She is 25 years old, and she just bought her condo in September.
That's amazing.
I know.
That's
Mission.
amazing.
Yeah. So, she has been watching. She is very focused. And again, she set her intention. She knew what she wanted to do. Even if you don't know what to do, and you don't know what you want, we have a conversation and we establish those goals. If you don't think about it, it never happens. We need to get that ball rolling. We need to, initiate the idea of that abundance thought process to get you to that next level, right? And everyone is looking to achieve the next level.
Yep.
I want to really preface that. People that have millions of dollars, they're like, well, I need to get to the next level. People that don't have as much, they want to get to the next level. And it's that inspired thinking. That's the clients that I seem to work with because they want to do better. They want to know more. And I would love to, educate in the areas. We all have gaps, So I do a lot of networking in the city.
Yeah.
I've been a member here at the Petroleum Club since March. I love it. I'm always meeting new people here, and they inspire me to meet other people and network other places as well.
You also use the workspace, the brew bar.
Yes, I do.
To sit and work. I see you in here at least once a week. When I pop in, I'm assuming you're here once a week. You could be here every day, and it's just me popping in here once a week. But it's always awesome when I come in because I always know that you have a kind word and a bright smile every single time.
Thank you. Yeah. I like to change it up. We all have this energy that we get to share with others. And changing the environment just helps to, keep it flowing in different ways. And with the networking, there is also the We Do that's coming up, which is the Women's Entrepreneurial Day and that organization. And I think you're going to be there, are you not?
I'm on the panel.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited. I love to see people succeed. That's my goal. I love to hear the stories of success. And that's why I bugged you for so long to come on the show, because I see you as a person of success here in Calgary. And it's not just the financial side of it. I view also success as a people who encourage other people's successes.
Absolutely.
I love that.
You want to see people win. You want to elevate them. And, since moving here to Calgary 8 years ago or 7.5 years ago, I have really been observant of how entrepreneurial spirited people are, how people are there to support you and elevate the conversation, elevate you to meet other people and to continue that networking and support. It's like-minded people. I just love it.
If you're out and about, if you are looking for a place to network and dive in, do come to the club. We have great members mixers, and we have amazing people like Karen. And the reality is if you're not in Calgary and you're looking for a new place to be, we are the city. If you want to reignite, reimagine, restart, re-inspire, you name the we got it. We got it.
We do.
Any final words you got for me, Karen?
Well, I guess I'd like to circle back and say, hey, if you are looking to figure out what you don't already know, I'd love to have a conversation. I'd love to open up that the ideas and the options and the path of exploration to what is going to be next for you. What does your financial future look like, and how can we reimagine it?
And where can they get a hold of you?
Well, I work with Core Wealth Solutions. So it's, Karen Boudewyn at Core Wealth Solutions. And
we'll have all your LinkedIn.
Yeah,
yes,
LinkedIn.
Gotta love LinkedIn.
You can give me a call. I do have a BC number as well as an Alberta number. I do have clients in BC when I go back to see family and clients there. And I look forward to connecting.
We'll have all of Karen's information in the show notes. And it's never too late to plant the tree.
Isn't that the truth?
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, calpeteclub.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.